Hey, look outside right there. The Trans Mountain Rado has made it home from its summer of hibernation in the deep freeze of the winter of Indiana. It snowed one time, but again, put that thing away. It is now home. The Great Pumpkin has returned to his owner. Really awesome car. You will be seeing it around probably some car shows, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about today is that car out there is what this car is going to look like, essentially, except it's going to be Pontiac powered right here. Look at that. Put some Ram air pans on, make it look a little cooler so you get the visual effect what we're going for. But we're going to get in today. Radiator, shroud, power steering cooler, and transmission cooler lines. Self-explanatory-ish for the most part, but a few things you might want to know, how the hardware goes, etc., how to make that thing work and put back on the car. Because we're going for the most authentic or original-looking Trans Am convertible without being $1 million car when we're done, because we know it's not one of the 8 because I said so. But other than that, it's going to be kind of hard to tell is the goal when this thing hits the show filter driving it around. So you really have to dig into it to question it. Well, it's kind of obvious you probably aren't going to drive it on a daily basis like this one's going to be driven, but you get the idea. So these details here, if you don't know how a power steering cooler goes on a Firebird 400, we're routing some transmission lines on here now. Once the engine and transmissions are in place, that's what we're going to get into here today. Well, here we go. Transmission lines are laid out there. Got those from Inline Tube. Love it. This is a power steering cooler kit for a Firebird 400. You'll see that on the cars. It mounts up here kind of off the power steering pump right here parallel to the core support laying on top of the radiator. You'll see that on Trans Ams and high RPM 400 engines that came with the Firebirds. Now, this is actually the first power steering cooler I have ever installed. So this will be a little bit of a learning experience for me. Factory fan shroud and a factory style radiator all ready to stab back in this thing. So let's start with the core support. Now there's opinion thoughts on how it goes, but here's how it works for me. I just got this kind of laying in place. It's not bolted in securely, but here's what we have. Put the bottom washer in here, so it's metal to the frame and has a little nub facing up. And this little rubber cone goes on top, big washer nut, such. That's how that goes. Now, the radiator, this is interesting. Probably some of you may know or did not know. It's held in with these here. This is like some kind of a rubber expansion plug. So as you screw it into place, it actually kind of squeezes in. That's for the driver's side hardware. The passenger side, pretty self-explanatory. 2 bolts. Pretty easy. Now, why it came down on the driver's side, I don't know why they didn't do that. But if you look here, there's the hole mounts here and down here. This hole is blind. There's no way to get to the other side of that hole. So some people drill all the way through, put a nut in the bolt. I guess that works, but the original setup was a rubber expansion style bolt plugs assembly here. So I decided to go back that way just because I just did. I think it's kind of cool looking. One of those little things maybe you didn't know about. And I just like I do the battery cable. So I got the original spring clamp style for this one. So we're getting all these little details dialed in really nice in this car. And I like staring at that. But nonetheless, let's get started with fishing some transmission cooler lines through. With the radiator and the shroud out of the way, we have enough room. We can actually still sneak them through here. Now, the routing is kind of weird. If you look, this is our cross member underneath the oil pan. There's the engine mount, obviously engine oil pan. They will fit through here without scratching or hitting anything. You gotta fish them just right, but you can stab them through. So that becomes the question. Maybe I should have put those in before I laid the transmission and engine in. I don't know, but I know they'll fit in there. But if you've got them, I did not, lay them in there. Maybe do yourself a favor, but it's just one more thing to juggle around. But like I said, they can be fished through, so I'm going to show you here right now. This is our transmission line. The really cool part is I'm going to hold the camera in this hand and the line in this hand, and we're going to stab this thing through here so you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to do both of them the same way, but you kind of got to hook it in here like so. There we go. It's like one of those really fun games. All right, and now you'll see it will poke out right down there. And that kind of lays into place. I'll hook it up to the transmission, and when the radiator's in, we can hook them up. So I'll do the same thing with the other line. All right. And for my next trick, got those transmission lines right. Let's talk fan shrouds and the radiators here for these cars. The fan shroud attaches a clip here and a clip here, which then mounts to each of the tanks here on the lower portion of the radiator. Well, that's all fine and dandy, because this side here, the little ear is exactly where it needs to be. This side, on the other hand, MIA. It's actually a little clip-on thing, snags here, clips around here, and hooks into the little hole here on the side. It's missing. I've misplaced it. I've lost it. I don't know where it went. That's not going to stop us today, but that can be installed later on. So we're going to put a delay on that little bit and go ahead and get it all put into place. This one, you should be aware of that. That's where the bottom 2 ears mount for the radiator shroud, or fan shroud. And then the upper one, of course, it bolts here to our little part here and holds the top of it. So that one's kind of self-explanatory, but just in case you never knew how that was supposed to mount up, well, there's supposed to be a little clip, and mine's missing. I'll show you a picture of it right there, in case you wonder what it looks like, or if you see it somewhere in my garage, let me know, and we'll keep on moving forward. But nonetheless, mount the radiator up here. And next thing here, before I grab that radiator, I wanted to show you something here. This core support mount, if you look carefully here, I've got it in place. There's a rubber sleeve that slides inside the core support. The big metal washer actually has a tube attached to it, comes up through it like so, and then it rests on the frame. You can actually see the outline of the metal washer, exactly where it used to reside. Kind of get you an idea to confirm orientation. There's some questions on orientation on this. And then there's a rubber bushing stacks on top. Bring the bolt in from the bottom, large washer, lock washer, and then the nut, and you're good to go. And then the other thing on these radiator little rubber mounts here, orientation is this way. You see the nut, it actually goes towards the front. And when you put the bolt in, the radiator is going to push up against that, and it's going to squeeze this side out here and kind of cause it to swell up, and that's what anchors it in the core support. So now I'm going to grab that radiator and get it installed. All right, let's get rolling. First step, lay your fan shroud in here. Make your life easier. You'll thank me later. It has a hard time fitting in. Even when it's leaning forward, it just doesn't want to slide into place. And our radiator. Now on the driver's side, I've already started those rubber bushings on the radiator, so kind of like an alignment pin. It'll kind of slide into place. On this side, just has some threaded holes, so pretty self-explanatory. Now, if I had my buddy Louie here, he'd give me a hand with this so I don't scratch the paint up, but he's in Pennsylvania. Maybe you should stop by this summer, Louie. Just saying. Well, heck, even Brian. Come on out to Indiana, cool off, get away from the Arizona heat, hang out here in the 75-degree with 80% humidity. So, but that's kind of how that goes. Let me just snug these up. At this point, it has a little bit of adjustment, but I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down for now and hope that my fan shroud clears. I'm going to show you those little rubber things here. Now here's the back side of that rubber bushing. You see now it used to be a nice flat sleeve. Now it's got this little bulge on it. That's what they use to hold that in place. And this is what they did from the factory. Problem is these would seize up with corrosion. You never get them apart and you got to cut them out. And again, the other one is behind here and it's blind. You can't see it. But as long as you have a little bit of tension on it, you just put your socket on it here, give it a few turns, and it'll pull right up tight. Get that fan shroud out of my way. You'll feel it get snug, and there's probably some kind of magic torque for this, but I just get it where it's just feels kind of right about there tight. That should work pretty good. All right, so what's next in the bag of tricks? Well, fan shroud's kind of laying in here. Radiator is tied to the core support. Core support's decent, but what we need to get in here next is not this bracket that holds the top of the fan shroud, but the piece that resides in here. One of the things we're talking about here for the Trans Am or 400 Firebirds power steering cooler. This is a kit that I purchased. This is the first one I've installed. I bought the complete kit. It was about $50 if I recall right. Came with the tube, came with the barb that came off of the power steering gearbox, rubber hose to here with clamps and rubber hose back here to the pump. Each clamp that ties to the top of the radiator, and even some kind of a wire tie thing. So it's a very solid and complete kit. And I got it from the parts store like that. That's what I call the parts place, the parts store. I'll see if I can find a link, throw it up here. But $50, I think is what it was. And it looks like it'd be relatively simple to install. The next thing to keep in mind, we got to drill 2 holes in the top of the radiator. Oh, crap, it's going to make a leak. No, I know it makes some of you nervous, but trust me, this top section here is about 3/4 of an inch tall. And even that top row on this radiator does not have coolant passing through it. It is just there to tie to the top and the bottom. So we're going to use a couple short self-tapper screws once you locate where you want the clamps at. Then we'll put the shiny hardware that came with the kit and put it on here. And the thing about 1969 fan shroud, see this little notch and notch? Guess what that's for? Well, that's for clearance, I guess, for these brackets that holds this cooler in place. So my location, well, it doesn't have to be exactly 100% perfect by spec because it just has to line up with this window, and I have some kind of orientation. So I'll get my little retaining hold down clamps and a couple of screws to show you how this works. Here's what the clamp looks like. Nothing overly complicated. Got a single hole in it. Lay it on top of the radiator like so, where you want it located at. Let's say, calibrated eye says right about there. So then we'll do this right here. All right, that used the self-tapper. It's the same diameter and thread pitch it came with. The bolts that it came with, these are a lot shorter, so I feel a little more comfortable putting those in there. Oops, dropped my screw. All right. Get rid of that. I'll run this one in. I'll do the same to this side here. And that'll look pretty good. Put the little screw in. Now, I can now install this bracket here. Now this bracket's the original one. The typical thing you've seen in the other videos. Media blast it, self-edge prime, and then paint it. Now it still has the square style nuts on it. Sometimes I keep those for other areas of the project. But in this case, I think I've collected enough now. I'm gonna leave them on here. But let's say like the areas that's visible, like on the inside of the fender wells, sometimes I'll keep those just for a little added touch of original hardware, because your repop stuff do not come this way. See that square shape? Well, it doesn't happen. But anyway, I'll go ahead and put this in place next here. As you can tell, you could not really effectively fish that thing through there with this thing in here. So next thing here, we'll slide this into place. And that'll just about wrap up the fan shroud install. And I'll show you how these lines hook up there to the power steering, gearbox, and the pump. Next part here are these return hoses here. It came with this in the kit and these cool little clamps. Now, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but it goes from here to the return on the back of the power steering pump, and then from here to the gearbox to hook them together. Now, the hoses are actually a little longer than what I need. One's a little bit shorter, of course, so obviously the long one's going to reach further, but it's actually extra long. That's probably just because they don't want to give you not enough and run into a problem. But I'm also thinking, just in case to cover my butt, I don't think I'm going to cut them yet. I'm going to lay these on here. I'm going to mock it up, get it put into place, pull the little caps off. But I just don't want to trim these yet until I get the car, I guess say the fender well installed, to make sure what kind of clearance I have, or maybe the routing. Maybe I just don't like it how visually it looks. So instead of cutting it and then wishing I didn't, I'm going to just, for the time being, just slide that over the barb to keep dirt out. Put two of the clamps in place, so again, keep track of all my hardware, because this came in a kit in a bag, and a lot of stuff going on rebuilding an entire car. Stuff gets lost, so this way it keeps it tidy and clean. But I figured you get the idea here. And then what I'll work on next, well, I'm not entirely sure. There's all kinds of things to do here on this project, but this is a cool little touch. And if you've never done a power steering cooler, you see how easy that was to install. And also that kit came with this return line. It goes right here on the gearbox itself too, so it's a really comprehensive kit. And I think I said I got it from the parts place. That is not true. I got this one from Inline Tube. I look at the receipts. I want to make sure I told you the right information. So if you want to order this kit, Inline Tube, here's the part number for it up there on the top of the screen. That way you get the whole thing just like that. Simple as that. You can probably install this thing in a matter of probably 15 minutes at home if you wanted to upgrade your car, or if you had a 400 Firebird, it's probably supposed to be on there anyway, so you might want to add that little detail to it. There you go, power steering cooler installed. You get the idea how it goes. And I forgot to mention, it comes with this little strap here also. As you can tell, a little extra slack, but we'll worry about that once the fender is installed and all that's taken care of. Went ahead and finished putting the transmission cooler lines on. These are also from Inline Tube. Came with a little clip there. I put the little clip back here on the line down there. You can't hardly see it. We see a little black spot, but you get the idea. Those things routed in there really nice. They clear the oil pan. They clear the cross member. They look really good. And they fit great, so I'm super happy with those lines. And again, you can sneak those in there with the engine and transmission already installed. You saw how that goes in there, but it helps if you don't have too much stuff going on up here yet. Radiator, fan shroud installed. I need to locate my missing clip for down here. This thing's actually pretty solid, though, for missing that clip. But I think it was gone to begin with because, you know, I'm perfectly organized. No way I lost it in that pile of parts. Actually, I don't think I actually had it. So you come with the upper and lower radiator hose. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. The cooling system. We'll probably bypass the heater core for now. That way we can test run this thing. Because look at this here. Getting all the little finishing touches all wrapped up. We're going to test fire this thing here. Run the transmission through the gears. Check it for leaks, noises, etc. before we install it back on the body. Someone asked me, why don't I install the subframe, then the engine and transmission? Because this is, to me, in my eyes, the perfect test run stand. I can check every connection, every junction, everything before wrestling it in the car body and risk damaging or scratching something. To me, it's just how I see it. So, you know, if you have something that works for you, go for it. But this is just what I'm doing, and that is the why. I hope that brings some clarity to it. I think next go around here, I'm going to work on the pointless video. What I mean by that is we're going to make a distributor work without the point system. We're going to upgrade to electronic ignition, so no more concerns or worries about, you know, dwell or setting points or condenser malfunctioning and leaving you hanging. Now, hiding underneath here, of course, we have the ram air pans laying on to make it look pretty. That carburetor actually came off that GTO parts car. I took it apart, went through it, cleaned it up, and then realized I didn't really do a video on it. But I have another carburetor that the owner of this car bought. I think I may do a video on it, going through it and cleaning up. I may not repaint it or recoat it because it's actually in pretty good shape. But getting really close to test firing this thing. Got a couple loose ends to tie up, but that's what we should get into here next. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching. Took care of all the odds and ends we wanted to get into today. And something I want a little note here at the end. If there's something you do want to see, I want you to keep this in mind. What you're seeing as for this build, this might be 1 or 2 weeks old. Sometimes I just have a stockpile of videos. I get the camera, I get the cranking and doing stuff. And I guess build up some, and that's kind of what happens. So what'll happen is sometimes I might get past the part you want to see is what I'm trying to say. So there's a part in particular. Don't wait until you think I might be getting to it next. Let me know now in the comments so I can get that out here for you and take care of it. Because some stuff I just assume that's just, well, maybe not that important. But maybe it is or super helpful to you. So anyway, appreciate you guys following me on the journey of the Mockingbird. I'm going to go for a ride out there in the Trans-Colorado, put the top down and enjoy all the hard work and why we do these things. But when I get back here to the shop, I will grab the camera and I hope to see you guys then.